So they have knit connections to the divine, but they also could be used as a negative stance too. Some Masons may use them negatively. There are occults that could use them negatively because of the reductive energy points that they indicate for. And when they reach up to a certain height and a certain level, because it gets close to the sun, S-U-N, hint, hint, ancient times, it enacts an extra energy point through that level because it's hitting closer.
Everybody, welcome to episode 53. Blue, how are you doing?
I'm good today, Mike.
Hey, what are we going to talk about today in 53?
Things we'll be discussing about is the Mauna Loa LavaTubes and the International Moon and Base Alliance Organization. What it affiliates with between Mars, the moon, and the actual underground tubes itself of Mauna Loa, Hawaii. The underground research that affiliates with both, and living habitats between microorganisms and what they're dealing with that type of research. What we can do with actual main habitats for mankind as well, for established between what we already know here and what tunnels or what actual tubes are up there in Mars itself. They do have tubes underground.
Wow.
Or creating to what Elon Musk has already acknowledged about before and moving forward with the Boring Company underground is similar. Actually maintaining a stabilized systems or tunnelized systems or learning from that, or even regular formational codes between the two base speeds itself.
Wow. That's a lot of stuff. I'm glad we got time to do. I hope we have enough time. Hey, before we get started, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We are out there on the socials. You can find us just about anywhere. We're on Truth Social now as well. Hey, if we're not on a platform that you prefer to get your stuff, let us know, and we'll try our best to get on that platform. Go ahead and take the time, though, to go ahead and like, subscribe, click on notifications and all that stuff so you're notified when we post new material. Blue, let's get right into it.
Absolutely. Just like we had said about the microbes we find in Hawaii could be similar to microbes that once lived on Mars or even now, today. So at the time of the study was who a certain graduate research in a lab had found. So what they are doing is that they're utilizing these resources between two areas of effect and seeing and establishing what could be maintained between those resources, those microorganisms, and even water itself, the creatures, what types of benefits that could be maintained, and how they are able to establish that even the ecosystem itself through those types of tubes. The actual lava tubes, the hollow ones. So the neat type of research station that gets deeper into it, that deals with NASA, and it deals with working towards alliances with other space organizations to maintain by and run by the International Moon Base Alliance. So an association working towards developing the first international moon base. So it's also part of the Hawaii space exploration analog and simulation. Those events cooperate with each other. And what finds it interesting is they have similar organisms between each other that are connected. How intact can that be? Now, when they are dealing with in the astronauts they also have live suits that they are manufacturing, and seeing that these types of suits can obtain with certain degrees in underground scenarios, and being able to live within these suit modules and maintain through it and undergo our exploration through it. What they do here, they could be able to maintain up there in space.
It's curious. That's very curious. Do you think our guy Elon is involved in this at all?
Absolutely. I mean, well, the part of this scenario, yes, if you're dealing with the tunnels underground and you're dealing with substations, remember we mentioned before with the actual Arctech, the industries with the pod itself and simulation code, that these tunnels can go up into them from underground, or those substandard tunnels can be maintained to be able to explore or be able to go from one area to the other. Then they have the all natural types that if humans can learn from that, they can maintain moving into a more technological type, if you will. And by processing that, they're going to learn, even with organisms that are already living through habitats, what can be maintained and distributed better, not just for mankind, but the things that live there as well.
You know, I'm curious, so I can get an accurate read visually in my mind what we're talking about here, because we've talked about an Agarthan realm, and we're talking about tunnels. This is like in between. This doesn't go all the way down to Agartha, or does it?
These are made by lava itself. One of, I believe Hawaii might have a connection, very well might, with the actual tubes that no longer have lava in them, that are empty, because it's so established that the tunnels extend for wide periods. One of the biggest tunnels out there that actually have that lava system. But with these inactive lava tubes, though, and they've not been around, they've been de-established from it for so long, other subsystems can be created into it, or organisms or animals. They even have bats and other smaller subspecies. Just like caves, after a period of time, even caves that had water, then they were drained for a while, and then it became as an actual cavern. It's similar to this. This is more natural. But with stuff like the Elon Musk, with the boring system, obviously that's technical. But learning from substantial frequency drives like this, that brings that coordinated spirit into effect. But the natural subsystems created by the lava, though, it creates beautiful architect. It's just similar to the prospect that some of this may not have been built by lava itself, but maintained through an actual index system. Mars obviously may have one time had lava because of the actual underground tubes that they had found. They're finding stuff like this to be exotic, and they're learning from it. Just like they had inner Agarthan realms and species people don't know about, there are many types of microorganisms and other types of really small insects and subspecies in these systems that humans are not aware of because they're unexplored.
We've talked about the moon and Mars in the past here, and you've maintained that there's already colonization, there's already something happening with both those places. Have we taken from these lava tubes any ideas or structure or anything that we're utilizing on the moon and Mars?
Well, yes. I mean, they have similar types of tubes there that could have been indicated from either water or lava and empty. And those microorganisms are kind of similar to the fact that they found between both transaction speeds. Like we once lived on Mars, or even live there today. They are studying that. Who knows? There could have been an impact of an asteroid or meteor or something else that could have had created a similarity point between both or something defined from higher species that could have created a symbology point. But scientists are well aware, and they are seeking extra information to deal with things that could possibly create to maneuver around catastrophe events, or to maneuver around things that could downsize the actual species, to bring an elevated sphere of effect, to maintaining so we can go on to other exoplanetary systems and establish that. So they're finding and stabilizing ways to maintain the codes of ethics that way. And if oxygen isn't on a good enough level, or it's just too darn hot on Mars, or it's another reason, then obviously tunnel systems may be a good start on an establishment to an outer gridding system, an Arctech portrayal there. And what Elon Musk is already establishing, he's most likely putting onto base systems so humans could advance in the near future between Mars, Moon, and planet Earth itself.
I see our next topic here, the Vatican and extraterrestrial obelisks. Tell me more.
Yes, energy pillar field to the gods. What gets interesting with this is in regards that it is closely knit to a lot of divine portrayal codes, including Masons, the Vaticans. It was knit up to Egyptians. It was knit up to as well as Christianity and many other civilizations. These stone pillars had inscripts on them. These types of inscripts, well, when it goes into the ancient Egyptians, reach up and manualize into the sun, or Ra, S-U-N, respecting the divine. You know, they had a coordinated sphere of a certain tower that had respected that as well. But these types of similar points, they created as energy points. And some of them, especially with the Vatican itself, are knit up to the gods, or they have a respect to certain inscripts through it.
You know,
and when you go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I look around our own country and I see an obelisk in Washington, D.C. I mean, I just find it odd that these things are all over the place and we have one. There's got to be this deep, deep meaning. It's not just the throwback. It's not just, I mean, is it possible there's something more to this, that these obelisks mean something maybe we don't even understand or comprehend yet?
Well, they have knit connections to the divine, but they also could be used as a negative stance too. Some Masons may use them negatively. There are occults that could use them negatively because of the reductive energy points that they indicate for. And when they reach up to a certain height and a certain level, because it gets close to the sun, S-U-N, hint, hint, ancient times, it enacts an extra energy point through that level because it's hitting closer.
So as an energy pillar, is it possible these are like refueling docks or bays or a place to draw energy from? Or is this a place where, you know, that we could draw energy from? Or is this a place where maybe energy was drawn from in the past?
Well, think about the inscripts that are on it. Just like nowadays, when you deal with the Vatican, they have one point of the line of effect into the other on the other side. But think about how, with those, how it's manualized, and through certain writings, the establishment could create an energy indexing point, depending on how it's outletted, maintains that. You know, it's interesting because we have to go deeper with the Vatican and what they deal with. And with some of the things that they have behind them, especially with the Pope here, just where this person was I sent you. And it had an script with just ET behind it, UFO. And when you think about why they have obelisks, where they got all this information from, why they have documentations, everything hidden. It's because maybe that they are still run by higher advanced citizens or higher advanced species, and they're under them, and they got that information through that.
I find it curious because a lot of people don't realize the Vatican has this expansive library from like forever, and they purposely, no one looks at a lot of the content, and it's edited in a way for their, I would think, for their protection and maybe even mankind's protection. Maybe we're not prepared for all that information. You know, we've talked about it in the past. You got to gradually drip things out. I think after a couple thousand years, we're to the point where we might be able to start to understand some of these things. So it would be nice. I look at the picture you sent me here, and I'm looking with that photo. What's your interpretation of that photo? To me, what it looks like is a spacecraft with some sort of mechanism or some sort of controlling thing to actually take Christ up in the ascension, and the surrounding swirls around him are the fire or flames of the ship taking off, because back then there was no frame of reference for such technology. Is that what you make of that photo?
Rising of the divine. That's pretty much what it's saying. It's rising of the divine, rising into the gods, into the heavens. Then remember what I stated to him before, interplanetary seeding. He has activated DNA from the higher beings, was gifted. Just these divine goes in so many ways. And for humankind to lose the divine, they will entirely lose themselves, because it goes so much deeper than what they would ever perceive. It goes higher. It goes more advanced. They got to remember the equal stance between the good and the bad, and never unwaver from that.
I think if we just follow the clues, like this one here in this photo, you know, there's been hieroglyphs and photos and cave paintings and drawings and carvings where it looks like you can interpret these guys are in some sort of extraterrestrial craft. We've seen in paintings, you know, hints or maybe, you know, if you look real carefully, it looks like something could be in the background there that's not human or not man-made. And it's just amazing to me that all these signs keep popping out on us. And some people are trying to connect the dots here, but I just find it curious. It makes me think there's more closeness to what we believe in theological terms and what we believe to be in extraterrestrial terms. Those two things keep coming together for me. Am I crazy?
No. People just got to connect the dots. When you connect the dots, it makes things a whole lot easier to perceive.
That's heavy stuff. That's a lot of heavy information today. Hey, are we ready to talk about the SCP Foundation?
Absolutely. Get on to SCP-54, the Water Nymph, or the Naiad. What's interesting about them is it most often appears as a female humanoid with the mean volume of 11 liters of compromised highly of water and other forms of possible geometric shapes. When it enters the body of water, it becomes indistinguishable from its surroundings. The subject as well must periodically return to a body of water in order to maintain its volume due to evaporation. So, I mean, if it becomes evaporated, it becomes weak, it becomes extremely unstable. Initially found, it was not going to say where. It was moved to a site for further study. I'm going to say one thing. These beings, these entities, there's more than one, and they exist from the inner realms, and they're part of this great society. They're also initially good beings and good entities, but misunderstood by mankind throughout the generations. Now, the subject was pretty much put through numerous types of tests, and I'm going to be honest with you, and some of them aren't nice. But regardless of the effect, and because she had gone through these tests, and they had dealt with one problem, she only trusts females now when it comes to with the Foundation. She won't deal with males.
You know, it's curious to me because when I see a picture of Water Nymph, it looks like the illustration, the paintings, what have you, they look like fairies from the forest back in, you know, what you would see like medieval days or way back in time. And then I also question, is there a relationship here with mermaids? We're mentioning these female characters and water. Is there a connection with mermaids?
Well, this is a biological entity that's made out of a soluble water and another type of elemental substance. And it's not the same thing as the mer people. Mer people are more extraterrestrial entities and biological and matter. This type of entity can subdifuse between matter of aqua and linear effect. And they are not as seen as much as of those entity status through mermaids as it is because of the molecules and the way they enact through things. The only issue is that they're misunderstood in so many ways. And they would develop a thing against males if they treated it bad. Because these entities are considered higher up.
Is there anything I need to fear from a water nymph? Is it dangerous to me?
No. I mean, if you feel like it's going to get invoked and attacked in any way, yes.
Curious. Is there... Are they all contained? Is it just one? Or there's many, and this is just one we have contained?
As far as I know, they only have one in conclusion. But like I said, they're intergarden species, and they're hard to detect. They try to avoid most of humankind as it is because of the way they are. Some of them may get interested in for reasons because they accept others of unknown willingness. But just some of the experimentations that they're doing because they want to learn from the species, but they may want to consider experimenting a different way instead of harming it, and maybe cooperate on a level of fact between the females and that species, since they have lost interest with the males because of certain things that happen there in containment. Maybe finding what could be done on a communicative platform, or seeing what the interspecies needs and requires, and seeing where that can be maintained for. I mean, they want to know how the molecules are enacted, but do you really want to put someone or an entity down and make it hurt, put harm on it, harm it to death? I'm going to be honest, some humans are not nice, even those that run through that. But regardless of the effect, if we could learn, and this is a good way to learn from them, and it goes back into Greek mythology, but it does run into a lot of truth, is of a flowing water, they're nymphs. They're close to the nymph status codes. And they're naiads, they're appropriate in relation to fresh water, presented as beautiful, lighthearted, and beneficial beings and races. But when misunderstood and taken for granted, they'll push away, they'll pull away from mankind. And we're not off with that because we have several other species that have done so. They have lost their respect between themselves and those of humankind. Sasquatch, mermaids, certain ET species, certain horse species. We can go down the line.
And to be clear,
humans,
and to be clear, freshwater, saltwater, both, it doesn't matter.
Freshwater, they're more appropriated with. I mean, they might have like a subspecies that are coordinated with saltwater, but they prefer freshwater lakes, fountains, especially fountains. This particular species, she coordinates with the fountain. And if she's relieved from that water, she diminishes, or not entirely, but she's withdrawn. to a very substantial state.
Interesting. Very interesting. I don't know if it's going to be more interesting than this next one, though. Tell us about the next SCP.
Yes, SCP-77, Rock Skull. SCP-77 appears to be the top half of a human skull engraved with ruins. Similar to what we just talked about with the Obelisks, how it having an energy effect. Each filled with an unidentified black resin. The ruins change every lunar month, defined by the full moon and the horizon in Ireland. So this particular skull had to do with somewhere in Ireland, as well as the winter and summer solstices. It's interesting that what gets interesting with this is if these engravings are not read aloud and at least once within a 24-hour period, the eye sockets and nasal cavity of the SCP will emit a luminescent green vapor. That particular green vapor, when it reaches and extends to a certain area, once it hits a molecular person, it creates a biological material that hits this. Well, besides the skull itself, will instantly be transformed into a vicious, malodorous ooze. The ooze has been identified as the rotted flesh of potato tubers. So anyone who does not recite this and recite it proper within those timelines, it emits that gaseous fume outwards and extends it around a certain radius stream. People can die from this too.
You know, you had mentioned potatoes, tubers, and the first thing that came to mind with me was maybe in Ireland or maybe with the potato famine. Maybe, is this kind of where this was discovered, do you think?
It was recovered in the village in Ireland. Certain tribes or certain people who want to create magical effects. And with that, they would create negative effects or negative energy. And they could use particles of a certain imagery and utilize it with that energy.
When I go back in time
and create rituals with it.
When I go back in time in my mind and I'm picturing these things, I wonder if this is some sort of pagan thing. Is this some sort of magic that they thought, or maybe witchcraft or something to that effect?
Yes, and it very well could have been too, as it was recorded to as a ritual, but and recorded to as someone could have dealt with, like you said, paganism. But regardless, the person, and it does create effects on the actual person who reads it too. You can't go around this. It creates a negative effect either way. So yes, whoever created this didn't have a good benefit for mankind. And whatever energy it's intaking, whatever they have to describe outwards, that entity, it may be giving energy towards, it may be giving power towards. With these rituals. And when they read it, it creates nausea, it can create cramps, headaches, dizziness, incontinence, fever, skin rashes, and the levels go up depending on how long you read it. And with the manuscripts on the actual skull itself, they can alter and change on their own from time to time. And they have to have SCP Foundation members, and they have an actual place, an area only where they have it, and those that have ended up with that type of problem, tubers on them.
Is this something dangerous to me, or is this indeed contained?
Well, it's contained in that actual area itself. The skull is the only one that they know of in history at this time. So either way, the individuals, and they monitor the individuals because some individuals who deal with this get affected differently than others.
scary stuff when you think back on it, because I can imagine back in the day they were just blown away by a lot of the things we talked about today, whether it was the obelisk, whether it was the image that you sent to me with the Vatican, and maybe the connection to extraterrestrials and the LavaTubes. A lot of exciting stuff today. Hey, what do we have to report from your positions with the Space Force and the Federation?
Well, if we've all been paying attention, there have been a lot of electromagnetic field disturbances within the last week and powerful solar flares. Now, what's interesting about this is playing out the vital roles that NASA and other space organizations are maintaining, as well as the force of the lines of effects that are being activated through this. The eruptions of the molecules. Certain areas are hit more than others. With these types of eruptions and these types of solar flares, which most humans think they are regular solar flares, but they're activating something altogether instead. It could also create decommission upon negative elements. And another thing we were talking about is Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis signing bills banning lab-grown meat. It gets disgusting, people. You look at the generics of getting hamburger nowadays, and you're gonna look. Someone has their own. I know I'm vegan, but I'm gonna go over it. These humans gotta learn between good and bad, regardless. That the meat that they create now and the meat they had with regular farms, without bioengineering and all that other stuff, looks totally different, tastes totally different. It's not even the same thing. It's lab grown. It's grown in a lab. It's packed in and compounded in a lab. It might not even be from an actual bovine. It could be mixed into certain generic forms and copied. And what he's doing is banning this because it's going to create so many sicknesses.
You look back in our history, and I look back to maybe the 60s / the 70s, when that shift to high fructose corn syrup and processing of more foods to make them more family friendly. And then that kind of triggered a mom can now leave the house because she has to get a job, and this is going to be easier. So enjoy more processed foods. And in that time period, we become more overweight as a society. We've become in a situation where we have more diabetes. We have more high blood pressure, hypertension. We have more heart attacks. We have a lot of things that are literally killing us. And this, I could see where this could be another shift in that area here. Scary stuff, Blue. Scary stuff.
We need to pay attention between ordering tactical nuclear weapons drills in response to Western threats, Putin. And then we're dealing with the new U.S. Air Force brand new Doomsday jet and why they're activating that. This is a warning to mankind. This shit's got to start getting shut down, and we got to start maintaining our code of ethics here and stop stabilizing the Western side and what they're doing. Because if we're going to keep doing this, we're going to keep acting up, and we're going to create a war. And that war's not going to heal the planet proper. This is a warning label. In order for Putin and others to stand down, Mr. Biden's got to stand down too and start acting proper, including all of the other leaders across the planet. What can we do to maintain our own management code with each other? Can we stop acting silly? Can we stop acting out with these stupid laws? Let's stop the fights. Let's start making our own terms right and respecting each other.
That's impactful there. All right. Now let's get into ET of the week.
Yes, the tall whites. The tall whites are one of the main activated DNA controllers of several star systems, including Earth. Closer genetics acclimate to another species, the Zeta Reticuli, which they have very close coordinated genesis codes between both. Possession to more doctrine rules of DNA incubation, humans to hybrids, cloning, modification, political, skeptical government affairs, mind control, national security infiltration, abductions, microchips, advanced acceptable technologies. It goes on, thus placing the species on both sides of the role, good or bad. Heights normally range between 7 to 10 feet in length, and they utilize chalky white skin to a light pink on the female side. So advanced in teleportation and telepathic communication as well, bearing reproductive organs, but only associated better because of the way their reproductive organs are, with cloning, reanimated cloning, modification. And that includes the synthetic relay codes to be able to maintain. So their walk-in perimeters, or perimeters that they have between both DNA of humans and their species. Kind of like a hybrid, if you will.
You know, I hear the words DNA controllers, and I heard you say they're from several star systems, including Earth. Does the good or evil part of them, is that determined on which star system they're from, or is it just like here on Earth where we commingle the evil and the good?
Well, they're commingling the DNA structure with these species and several other types of phurons. These are more acted up to, obviously, governmental lines in maintaining the system itself. Humans are not the only things that they're diagnosed on speeding ways. If they were, they would not be how and where they're at right now with technologies and how to utilize DNA itself altogether. They get help.
Interesting stuff. If I see one, how do I react? Am I okay, you think?
They're fine because most of the species are already subjugated working alongside mankind. They cooperate in events, whether they're good or bad. But they then have hybrids like ourselves that look humanoid, but have transactional speeds of the gray substandards. And maintaining those codes of ethics amongst certain governments, organizations, or amongst mankind. And they're not been known because they hide the utilization speed.
Interesting stuff here. Wow. And just like that, we're out of time. That's what happens. We have fun. We talk about a lot of stuff. We cram a lot of stuff in each show. And if you're like me, go back and listen to it again, you know, and everything is coded on our videos. So you can always go back and find that one topic and listen again. It's real easy to do that. Blue, it's been a fascinating 53. Thank you very much. I look forward to 54.
Thank you, Mike. Absolutely.
All right. We'll see you next time. Keep looking up, folks.